Don't get nervous now.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Conversations at the Well. In this episode, we are going to dig into comfort a bit more. If you caught our last episode, we kind of introduced it, but we're going to talk a little bit more about when comfort gets dangerous.
You put the eyes on me like that again, it's going to get dangerous.
Okay, so in any case, join us for this conversation at the well.
We'll see you there. Hello, and welcome back to Conversations at the Well. We've been going through this discussion about comfort, what it means, how we've been kind of being pulled and drugged out of our comfortable little lives into what we believe that God is calling us into, which has required us to do a little bit more, to challenge ourselves to look into our life a little bit more, but also to turn away some of those things that may not be serving us, may not be what God has called us to be doing, but we've raised our hand for anyway.
Yeah. And then just the recognition that seasons change. And so some things that were purposeful and did serve you and served God well in one season, it may just not be time for it in this new season. So we're in a season of transition right now in our lives, but hopefully this conversation will enlighten you as to our process and what we've been experiencing and maybe help you. So join us for this conversation at the well.
Absolutely. So there's a quote that I wrote. Well, it sounds really, really conceited to say that, but there's a quote I want to read that I think kind of crystallizes this conversation, with the topic being, when comfort becomes dangerous. And I think no matter who you are, no matter where you are, there are areas of your life in which you want to change.
Yeah.
You want to grow. Areas in which where you look in your life and you say, I really missed the mark on that, or I want to excel or go further in my life. But the sobering part of that conversation, the sobering part of that list that you have of areas in which you want to grow, is when you look at where you are and how different that is from where you want to be. The part that slaps me in the back of my head is that your habits of today, actually, I wrote this wrong, but your today, the truth of who you are in this moment and how different that is from whatever goal or whatever fictitious image you have in your mind, who you are today are the receipts you carry of yesterday's decisions and habits. So whether you love yourself, whether you don't love yourself, whether you're excited about it, whether you're happy, whether you want 20 more years of whoever you are, who you are today is the receipt that you have of the decisions and the comforts you've been living in over the past however many years. Now, I don't want to make anyone feel unnecessarily negative, because in some cases, other people's decisions, perhaps a spouse's decisions, perhaps a family member's decision has impacted where you are or where you aren't. But at some point in time, you come into the realization that your hands are on the steering wheel now, and you're making the decisions, and you are forming or shaping your life. And the result or the receipt of who you are today is a direct implication of the decisions you've been consistently making.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, when I thought about that, I was like, oh man, I'm failing. That's not good. Because I would like to blame it on, I got to do this for the kids, or my wife doesn't let me do this, or this, that, and the third. But when you really get down to it and you look at the fact that where you are, who you are, whatever it is that you define yourself as, is a result of your decisions, you're like, man, it's so much easier to blame somebody else.
Yeah.
But when the buck stops with you, you really have to look yourself in the eye and say, well, maybe I'm the reason why I'm here.
Yeah. But you've said it's not your fault, but it is your problem.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So like when other people do, sometimes mess gets dropped at your doorstep. Okay, it wasn't your fault, but now it has become your situation to figure out.
Yeah.
And we have to adjust. We can't just continue on and just ignore this thing that's on your doorstep. You gotta change. You gotta evolve. You got to maybe bring in some new habits or new ways of doing things that will help you take care of the things you already had and this new thing that is coming or has come your way.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about my job, and working with a lot more customers, and it seems like emails are flying from every different corner of the earth, and somebody says, hey, did you remember to do this? And I'm like, oh man, I didn't even start working on that. Well, I could say, well, I got this going on, I got that going on, I got that going on, which is true. There's a lot of responsibilities that are floating, but at the end of the day, what did you do?
Yeah.
And what didn't you do?
Yeah.
And here's a problem. What are you going to do to fix it, to change it, to modify it, or in some way to influence it so it doesn't happen again?
You know, that happened to me yesterday.
What happened?
I'm not even going to tell you exactly what happened, but essentially what you said, like there was something and it was like on my to-do list. And I was like, I'll get it.
Yeah.
And then another colleague came and was like, so how's, and I was like, oh, okay. So now I have to figure out, I have to backtrack and actually really need to be honest and say, hey, I dropped the ball here, but here's what I'm doing to fix it. Yeah. And I have actively been working to fix the situation, but man, I just hate when it comes back to you.
and I think this is about a broader topic around habits. And when we think about the word habits, we think about these big things we aspire to do every day. I want to create a habit of praying every morning, whatever the habit you think is. Yeah. But what I think we often fail to realize is that life is a habit. If you were able to step outside of your life and watch you, there are a lot of things, I would venture to say probably 60 to 70% of the things you do on a daily basis, you do out of habit. You do the same time, the same way every time. And we have habits whether we recognize them or not. And so as we go back to that quote of saying that who you are today is the receipt of the decisions that you've made, I think when we find ourselves unhappy with where we are financially, relationally, whatever it may be, it's because of the habits, whether we recognize them or not, the habits that we've developed over time. And so I think one thing we should talk about here today is the danger of the comfort that we experience as we live in good and mostly bad habits each and every day. For me, we talked a little bit about last episode about my habit or lack thereof of getting up in the morning. Alarm clock would go off at like 4:15 because I got high hopes. And when I'm going to go at 150%. So the joker goes off, and I probably don't even catch the first two because I'm a 4:15, 4:30, 4:45, 5 o'clock, 5:15.
I catch them all.
Every single one. But I created the habit of ignoring it first, snoozing it then, and then waiting until I get to the point, okay, I really need to get up.
It's probably been like 20 now, so I should probably get up.
Everybody's going to be late if I don't get up now. And that just became the habit. That was just what happened. And the consistency of that led to the consistency of the outcome of me getting up, rushing, yelling, get ready, eat faster, do this. And now I've disrupted the whole family. And it's not a random occurrence. It's the norm or the comfort of what the day is, because that's my habit. And so what I want to encourage everybody to look at is look at your everyday life and recognize the habits, good and bad, that are contributing to where you are. If you feel like you're living in financial lack, what are your habits and how you're spending your money? If you feel like you're not able to eat healthy, what are your habits that kick off the urges for you to go and get those fruit snacks out of the kitchen? Now your kids don't have any snacks for their lunch in the morning. Like, what are the habits that are contributing to where you are today? And then when you see the gap between where you are and where you want to be, what needs to change in order to do those things? So getting up earlier, getting up on the first alarm, and setting a tone for creating that habit. But get this. So I've been doing this for like a week, and I'm at what's today, Friday? Day 5. And we think that day 1 is most important, but it's day 5 and day 10 and day 20 that are super important. Because this morning, actually yesterday is when it first started, the alarm went off. And I had the thought, I got to get up at 6. And it was 5:30. Okay, if I get up by 6, I can still get the guys up and ready to go. And so it started to slip, and I started to let go of the rope. And then yesterday I thought about it. Today I did it. Where okay, I'm going to lay here a little bit longer. She's in there on her prayer call. At 6, I'm going to get up and get the day started. But it's in that moment, in that decision, where you're creating a new habit of, no, I'm not going to hold myself to what I said I wanted that would have resulted in me getting to where I want to go. Now I'm slipping and sliding and getting into the gray area and allowing the excellence of what I was after to come down to the averageness of where we often find ourselves falling down to.
That's integrity, right? That's where we get into.
It's a big word for not getting up on time, but tell me more.
It's the integrity is, I'm going to do doing what you say you're going to do, essentially. And you, as you're describing that, and I mean, I've had that too. It's I think it's easier to be to have integrity with other people, because there's an accountability and you don't want to disappoint the other person, but like that same level of consideration for yourself and for the life that you're wanting and the habits you're trying to build. We can't, we're easy to slip and slide with what we said we're going to do when it comes to ourselves. But like, how do we build up our integrity muscle even with ourselves and the things we say we're going to do? But I mean, for me and thinking about like the time slot and whatnot, I realized, and this was an accident. I think I just literally overslept my alarm. It wasn't even a snooze. It was just like, I didn't hear it, which is unusual for me, right? I usually hear the alarm, but waking up, even at 5:30, so 5 is the goal. Even waking up at 5:30, like still stuff is off because I still didn't get to do my prayer time like I want to. So now I'm like, oh, okay, I need at least 15 minutes. And for me, 15 minutes turns into more
you better
time.
Hurry up and speak, because I only got 5 minutes.
Well, I'm going to tell you what I got to say, but I'm not going to listen to what you have to say because I just don't have time. Like, for real talk. Like, that's literally how it goes. Like, here, this is, dear Lord, here's my things. This is what I'm.
Bye. Catch you later.
This is all the stuff that's on my mind. Thanks. Okay, I'll see you later. So for me, like 5 a.m., it works for me because it gives me enough time to tell God what I want to tell him, but also to hear what God has to say, which is more important in my life at this point than me sharing everything that's on my heart. So I need to know what God's heart is. And that, man, when it doesn't and I see the impacts, that first thing that happens in the morning, and then I see the impacts of it throughout the day, and I'm like,
the plane's going down.
And I mean, I have tried to incorporate some ways to like get back on track if it happens, but man, when it doesn't happen, you really feel that thing. So in any case, I think that is maybe one of the lessons, is to regard yourself with the same level of integrity and accountability and importance and consideration that you do other people, because you're good too. Like it's worth it for you to be able to do the things that you know you need to do in a day.
And I think recognizing what it is. I mean, you often hear about spiritual warfare, and everything's not the devil or demons or whatever, but I think there's also a very real nature within us that, aside from the devil, aside from all of this stuff, to where we just want to be comfortable. We just want to do what we want to do.
I want to lay in bed longer.
Exactly. And so that's always at odds with us pursuing excellence. And so that's always a weight that we're going to have to carry. The question is, how consistently are you going to lift it and continue to move forward? And then when you do see yourself slip, are you aware enough to recognize it and to see it? Because I didn't see it yesterday, but I saw it when we started talking about the topics for today. Like I saw it when I was like, let me wait a little bit longer to get up. And I got up at 6:02 versus 5:30. I got out of bed, and then everything started kind of getting away from me. But when you recognize it, then what do you do? Because it starts out, this is a part of a larger life change I want to make. It starts out with, hey, I got up late. Then that turned into the habit. Well, then because I was rushing, I ran out the house and I didn't get breakfast. So I'm driving here to the well, where there's a McDonald's, there's a Burger King, there's a Sonic, all in which are right there. Well, let me swing over there. No, I already let go of the rope once today. I'm not going to do that. And then all of these things start to contribute to the cycle we have of starting something and never finishing it or seeing it until completion. And so you start to go into this wave of, I've started my new habits, it's looking good, and then I go back down. I start this new habit, it's looking good, and then it goes back down. Yeah. And so one of the things I was thinking about on the way here is we often have a thought process of rewarding ourselves for good behavior. So I ate well, or I exercised every day so I can get ice cream, or I woke up on time and so I can sleep in a little bit longer because it's the weekend. And I think we should certainly reward ourselves for our growth away from our comfort, but I'm not sure it should be as a result of doing the things that we said we were going to do or living a life around integrity, as much as it should be, if you're going to do it, around rewarding your consistency. I've done this for a week straight, therefore I can take a one opportunity break off of this habit. And so the reason why I say all this is so, I've been working out consistently here at the well. I didn't work out yesterday. And so it was like, well, I've done all week, or I've been here consistently. I don't have to do this one day, which sounds good and sounds like it makes a lot of sense. However, in all reality, we got 4 days of classes a week. Yeah. So when you zoom out and you say, well, you worked out 3 times in a 7-day period, you don't get a cookie for that. Like, literally. Yeah. But so often we allow our minor steps of integrity to be something that we believe is reward worthy, not recognizing that reward isn't a reward. That reward is a seed that will grow up less integrity later. And so it's not to say you're always going to be at that level where you can't literally handle a reward at that moment, but recognizing where you are in the process of creating or forming a habit to say, I'm not trying to get healthy or get a blood pressure down or find this biometric. I'm trying to instill a habit that's going to become my new norm. And so therefore I need to govern myself a little bit differently until I get to the point where it becomes something consistent. Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does. And what it made me think of is I'm shaking my head because I'm like, oh God, you're amazing. In my prayer time this week, I told you in the last episode, I told you about what was said about like prioritize the things that only you can do, delegate the rest. But one of the other things was, and when you get off track, quickly recognize it and repent, or go back the other way, like get back on track. Yeah. And the thing is, we're human, right? So because we're human, failure is just something that happens. Yeah. And so it's not that sometimes you'll miss your alarm. It's not that sometimes you'll snooze, but it's like, oh, I just hit snooze. Let me get up now. Yep. Like, I don't have to wait until the snooze goes off for me to get up. I can get up now. Or, oh man, I forgot I was supposed to be eating healthy in this meal. Okay, but there's another meal coming, so get back on track for that thing. Or maybe it's, okay, I've used up all of my calories for the day. I might just have to sit this one out. You know, whatever the case is, but there is always an option to get back on track before you are completely derailed.
And I love and I hate that you use the word integrity, because I think when you align your decision making with that of integrity, it makes that decision point a little bit different. So I'm a kind of person where I usually count up the costs and I'm like, it's worth it. Let me go through with it. Yeah. But let's take the example of, I forgot I was supposed to be eating healthy, and I'm sitting here with this triple cheeseburger with a large shake and large fries. Man. Me and myself would be like, oh man, I forgot I'm supposed to eat healthy. Well, but I already bought it. It's already, so let me put this thing down. And that's easy when you're just decision making. But when you said, how's your integrity? Integrity says, when I recognize I'm making a mistake, I stop. Yeah. Because integrity with the bowl of food is one thing, but if we're going to be honest, integrity when you're in the room with someone you're not supposed to be in the room with how does that then play the integrity game?
Yeah.
Right? It's the same thing.
Right.
You can't say that you're going to finish this plate of food because you're already here now, versus when you're in a sticky situation with somebody who's not your wife or your husband or your spouse. And not to take it from 0 to 100, but the integrity that you birth and that you create in the simple dark moments, in the simple moments of what you eat and how you govern your tongue and how you govern how you live your life, is the same integrity that you're going to live when you get out there in the wild with the bigger issues of life. And so I hate the way that you use that word, because it calls me to a bigger standard. Because I've always been okay with, okay, well, you know, I accept this. I'm fine with the consequences. Cool, let me go through with it. Yeah. But wisdom says that this is that. And if I can trust you with the small things, then I can trust you over the big things. But if I can't trust you with this plate of food, then how can I put you in that situation over there?
Right.
And I think as we're asking for more, and we put the focus back on who we are versus what God is not answering the prayer for, or what someone else is holding us back from. When we look and say, are we prepared for it? It's these little decisions we make on a daily basis that prove and are the receipts of what we can be trusted with in real life.
Yeah. Oh man.
That's your fault. You brought that up. That's why I use small words.
Well, I mean, that's real. That's deep. That's heavy, and
real,
that's
period.
like really, yeah. So there's things I got to work on too. And I think it can come from even it comes from a relational standpoint too, where sometimes things happen that we don't like. Someone may have said something or done something to us, and our reaction is immediate.
Yeah. And
it comes quick. The tongue is like sharp and cutting and all of that kind of stuff. And it feels good in the moment because you're just like, whew, got it out. Yeah. But at the same time, it wasn't. That's not this. We're talking about the standard. That's not the standard.
The integrity. You use the word. The integrity.
The integrity of the situation has been compromised.
Like I think about even our arguments. Like when I have an issue, because you don't usually have like issues that you're like, hey, I hate that you did this. Not that you don't have them, but you don't usually bring them up. If somebody's going to bring them up, it's probably me. And so like when I think about even how I talk to you or how I bring up problems or issues, there are times where it's like, there's a nicer way to say this, or there's a more loving way to respond, or a more patient way to respond. But today I choose violence. Like, but integrity says that's not all right. That's not okay.
Yeah.
And that creates the environment, or that creates the, I guess environment may be the best word, but the environment of a relationship that I fear more than anything. Like I always say that I never want to look back 20 years from now and say the woman who I've created is not the woman who I wanted to marry. And what I mean by that is, like, when I met you, it was a soft and a fragile, and not soft as in weak, but to be cared for and to be loved. And I never want to look back and be like, well, now you're like a rock because you've had to deal with me and my harshness because I wasn't able to control how I spoke or control how I esteemed or valued you through conversation.
Yeah.
But the integrity of it should say in the moment, do you still care about that? In the moment, what habit are you creating? In the moment, are you able to, even if you let it out, oh my gosh, I did what I didn't want to do. Let me go back and apologize. No, I need to go back and fix this.
Yeah.
And it may not be something I can fix in the moment, but I need to, that wasn't right. And I feel so bad about that I need to change it. And I think that's the integrity that I say we, because I don't want it to only be me, but I say that's the integrity that I'm being called to. But I think we're all being called to so value the tomorrow and to so value what this will turn into that you're not even willing to make a mistake with it today. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think, and it goes back to your quote about, who you are now as a result of yesterday's receipt. I said it wrong, but
or the receipts you have of today are the result of yesterday's decisions. Something like that. It sounded good. Go back and listen to it, 'cause I said it right the first time. Whatever it was.
Yeah, but I mean, in everything. And so I do think that it's maybe a time for pause, and maybe a time for reflection, maybe a time to just take inventory of like, who are you right now? And you may like it, you may not like it. It's just, but if you have never asked the question, you won't be able to, continue or correct. So it's really important to self-assess.
I don't even think you can ask who you are right now, because I think that's still through flowery glasses. I think it
yesterday?
has to be, no, I think it has to be, who do you want to be? Like, who is the best version of yourself?
Okay.
And then you compare that against who you are today.
That makes sense.
Because truth be told, like, there's nothing stopping you from being who you want to be today. Now, there may be something stopping you from having everything that person has today. But if we're talking just about describing the kind of person who walks in the room when the best version of you walks in, there's nothing stopping you but your decisions, your consistent decisions on who that is. And so if there's a difference between who you wish to be and who you are, why is that? And what decisions are you making, not consecutively, but consistently, that leads to that gap either growing or closing?
Yeah.
I think Kobe Bryant said, I think it was Kobe Bryant. It might have been somebody else, but the language in it makes me think it's Kobe Bryant.
Probably.
He said, well, somebody told him, well, you're never going to be perfect. And he said, I'm going to cut the distance between me and perfect. I'm going to cut that MF in half every day though. So even if you're this close from being perfect, you may never get there, but you can cut that gap in half time and time again with every decision that you've made.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when, people say you can't be perfect, that's both an excuse and a cop out for your lack of desire to try.
Yes.
And so if this is going to be actionable and not just die in word, but live through action and in truth, you have to try and you have to put forth effort, and you're going to fail, like you said, but repent, turn away from that thing as soon as you recognize it, and then go in the direction that you were going.
Yeah. There's a higher standard for all of us. And I think that standard, I think from our perspective, that standard comes from God because of our belief, and wherever you may be or whatever belief system you have, you check it against that. But for us, God is our standard, and he does everything with excellence, and he does everything is with intention. Everything is with purpose. And so I think a lot of times we just kind of walk through life very haphazardly, not with no intention, just out here, just doing things. I know I'm very guilty of that myself. And so it requires, it requires some shifting. It requires some changing and just aligning with the standard that are set, because the standard doesn't change. Even as we change more towards it or more away from it, the standard doesn't change. I think that's the importance and the beauty of God and our relationship with him, is like it's still here, and we're still striving, and it's it's actually literally beyond our reach in this world. But we're actively, like you said, cutting it in half. We're supposed to be actively working towards it every single day. And so today, this version of myself, I should never see this version of myself again. Wow. I should always be actively working to become a better version. And I know I haven't done that. So I've got a lot of work to do, or at least intentional work to do, to help close that gap between the ways in which I've been operating now versus the ways in which, God sees me. So, man, this one is tough, because I am like, I'm feeling real convicted in this particular, man. I'm like, okay, I gotta go. I feel like I need to go pray.
This is why I can't let her do the intro anymore.
Oh my goodness. But it's good.
Yeah.
And I think that, and I appreciate the correction. We kind of talked about this in the last episode about that grace that we're given to start making the better decisions, the better choices, and cutting out the things that no longer serve us. We have the opportunity to do it first, and if we don't,
And I think that's the perfection of the fatherhood of Christ and God, for him to prepare you for what's coming. I think I think back to, our kids just started school after going through a summer of staying up late and doing what they want and kind of having a good time. And the good parent in us said, okay, well, let's start reeling this thing back in and getting you on a routine. So it's not so jarring when you get there and you actually have an opportunity to succeed, because then you'll show up as your best self versus your tired self or your groggy self or your upset self when school starts. And I think, God being the perfect father does that for us as well, to say, hey, life is about to get real, whether you know it or not. Like, you may not be spending your time with me in prayer so I can show you these things. But even if you're not in prayer as often as you should, stuff is about to happen. Yeah. Get your life together so you're ready, so that you can live through that with grace and gracefully. Or, there's another path where, I'm not going to throw you into the fire without any preparation. So you can either do this on your own, or I can help you and send your butt to bed early so to get you prepared.
I mean, it's making me think, I wish I'd do it verbatim. I need to start memorizing scripture again. But about like when... I think it's in reference to being the vine and the branches, and it's like the ones that don't produce fruit will be cut off, and then the ones that do produce fruit will still be pruned. Both of those things being a cutting process. And so, we have. I'll speak for myself. I have this thing. I don't want to experience pain. I don't want to experience being cut, but it's also like you can't become more fruitful if you don't cut off the things that are dead, or the overgrowth, or the things that no longer serve. Because in order for the vine to continue to fruit and to continue to produce, if all that energy is going to stuff that's dead, like it's pulling away from the fruitfulness that's supposed to be happening. And
scripture personally.
But it's so true, and it's related to this conversation. Like some of the habits that we have developed over time, or have allowed to kind of grow in our lives. It's like cut that, because in order to produce more, you can't do that anymore.
Here it is. It's John 15. It says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener, I being Christ. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes. Yeah. So if you don't bear fruit, you get cut off. But if you do bear fruit, you're pruned. You're still cut, but cut with love and cut in a way that's going to stimulate growth, so that it will be even more fruitful. I'm going to read that again. I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, so that it will be even more fruitful. You are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Remain in me as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If you do not remain in me, you are like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire, and burned. If you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish. This is where the organ comes out. This is the part that we quote in church.
We love this part.
But we forget the other part.
We don't like to get pruned. We don't like to get pruned. We just like this part.
If you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish and it will be done for you. This is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples.
Man, oh man.
Cut either way.
You're going to get cut either way, but I think it is through our connection to Christ, through our connection with God, through Christ, that we begin to recognize the things that we understand the standard better, and we understand the direction better, and we are able to recognize the things that we need to get rid of.
And I think you often get the question of, why does God allow difficult or bad things to happen to good people? And I think you have to recognize the posture and the position of the scripture. So in our side yard, we had some trees that were really overgrown. And so I do what I do, and I go fire up my chainsaw and chop some stuff back. And the posture in which I chop things off that I no longer desire to have a relationship with or to be connected to me in any way is with a lot less care than me pruning the ferns we have up front that I desire to continue to grow.
Yeah.
Both of them, to someone who's looking on from the outside, have been cut. But the care in which I will find the damaged ends of the ferns versus just cutting damaged and good, it don't matter, you just on the walkway, die, is different.
It's very different.
And I think we have to have the maturity to look upon God's face with that type of eye to see both of those are getting cut, but the care and the love that's happening over here ensures that you can still grow. I'm just cutting off the dead ends, whereas over here, you're being cast into the fire, and those two things are different.
Right. Because, I mean, he's our Lord, but he's also our Father. And it's with that Father's love, that Father's heart. And I know sometimes that's difficult for people, especially if their earthly father has not been a good model of what a father should be. But just think of like the best father ever.
Yeah.
That's God.
Yeah.
And it's all about love. And so if there's anything that is being pruned from us or taken away from us, we have to trust and know that there's something good that's supposed to come out of it. There's scriptures for that too.
And I think that goes back to the receipts. Like at the end of the day, there will be times where there may be things that you value that are removed from your life.
Yeah.
But when you look at those receipts, maybe I didn't acquire those things in the right spirit, or maybe I wasn't supposed to have those, and maybe I went out on my own and did that. And the receipts will show that. But we only like to look at the hurtful part of the decision, but not what got us there, that resulted us getting my situation or this friendship is falling apart, and it's so horrible, it's so bad. Well, maybe God called you out of that a while ago, and it was hurting or harming you, and that's why we're here now. But it's much easier to look at the situation and say, oh, this was horrible, this was bad, I don't like God anymore. Well, maybe, but more likely he's being a good father and trying to protect you for something that you don't even see coming.
Yeah. That's why it's important to build that relationship, so you get to know his character and get to know how he operates, so that when people interact with you in a certain way, you don't turn your back on God because he allowed it to happen. I think that has become more and more common, where people leave the church. They might be like, I don't believe in God anymore because he wouldn't have allowed this thing to happen. But it's like, but it always brings into question, but do you know really how he does? Like, yeah, it hurts. It doesn't take away the fact that things hurt and that they're painful. He never promised us that there would be no hurt and pain in our life, but he did promise that he would always be with us. He promised that he would always love us. He promised that all things work together for the good of those that love God and are called according to his purpose. So anyway, that got very, very preachy. And that was not the intention.
You was talking about integrity. It's all your fault.
But bringing it back to the conversation about comfort and about what we have allowed ourselves to become comfortable with, we have, I will say in this moment that we have, you and I think based on our conversation today, have become way more comfortable with not practicing integrity than we would like. And so we are being challenged now to fix it. To undo as much as we can to get back to a place of integrity. Excuse me. And then not to allow the choices and the habits that we make going forward to get us off course. If we ever find ourselves off course, quickly recognizing it and getting back on track.
And then I think integrity starts with you. Like, integrity starts with the words you tell yourself that no one else can hear. If you can feel connected to the promises you make yourself and the commitments you make yourself, then it's so much easier for you to be connected to the words that you speak to others. So often we try to work from outside in, whereas if we change who we are to ourselves, where there is no accountability because it's just you and your mind, that changes who you are in your heart, which will reveal itself through the truth of your words.
Yep.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
I had notes, but I don't even think we. Thank you so much for joining us for this part 2 conversation about comfort. I hope it's challenged you. I hope it's opened your mind to look at yourself and say, am I who I want to be? And what decisions am I making on a consistent basis that have resulted in these receipts I have in my hand as to my decisions that I've made in the past? I hope you continue on this journey with us as we continue talking about comfort and talking about the danger, quite frankly, of living and staying in a comfortable life. We hope you continue to join us, and we hope to see you next week at Conversations at the Well.
Bye.